The ultimate goal of being well-informed, it isn't just absorbing facts. It's about making that knowledge yours.
Right.
It's about being able to articulate those facts clearly, understand all the subtle distinctions, and then apply that entire system with precision.
That's really the heart of it. I mean, think about the difference between just knowing a word.
Like on a flashcard.
Exactly. Being able to glance at a definition versus truly mastering the ideas behind it. Being able to, wield that word perfectly in the right context.
Whether you're communicating or analyzing or just learning something new.
Precisely.
And that's our mission here. In this deep dive, we take a stack of sometimes dense source material, in this case, all about the vocabulary of cognitive mastery, and we synthesize it.
We boil it down.
We want to give you the core, essential knowledge, and maybe more importantly, the application of that knowledge, so you can be well-informed, fast.
And this deep dive is built around, 26 key terms and phrasal verbs, all focused on that process of learning, communication, and precision. So we're not interested in textbook summaries today. We're going beyond that to understand the application, the implication of words like, say, nuance and ambiguity.
Using them as practical tools.
Exactly. Tools for better synthesis, for understanding the world around us.
So that's our framework. We're going to trace the whole journey of mastery. How do we start that first serious effort, that endeavor to acquire a skill?
And then how do we express our ideas coherently?
And crucially, how do we manage that?
Yeah.
That overwhelming feeling that comes with tackling a huge new field. Okay, let's unpack this.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, these words are really the essential components of critical thinking. They help us categorize not just things, but the processes of thought.
It's like the architecture of learning itself.
It is. We're looking at how you move from being a novice to true attainment.
All right, let's start at ground zero of any pursuit of expertise, which is that serious effort you have to put in. We're focusing now on the terms that describe setting goals, doing the work, and making that knowledge stick.
This really speaks directly to you, the learner. It's the why behind tuning in today.
So the foundation of this whole journey has to be the word endeavor.
Right. And our sources point out that it works as both a noun and a verb, which is interesting. But in both cases, it signals a certain magnitude.
It feels heavy.
It does. As a noun, it means a serious, determined effort, an enterprise. You're trying to achieve a pretty lofty goal.
It's not a casual try, is it? It's an undertaking. I mean, the synonyms alone, enterprise, venture, strive, they tell you the stakes are high.
Right.
The sources mention learning a new language as a worthwhile endeavor, that gravity gives the word its power. When you say you're endeavoring to finish a project, you're signaling seriousness.
And that seriousness is what separates success from just hope. The classic example is the space program, one of humanity's greatest endeavors.
It reminds you there's struggle involved.
Right.
Resources.
The difficulty is baked right into the concept of endeavor.
But it also suggests failure is an option, which I think is an important point. An endeavor can be ongoing and still not, fully succeed.
And that leads us right to the outcome we're actually chasing, which is acquisition.
The other side of the coin.
Exactly. Acquisition is the process of learning or acquiring skills. It's the concrete act of obtaining something. If endeavor is the striving,
then acquisition is getting it.
It's the successful attainment of that knowledge or skill.
Our sources get pretty technical here. They talk about language acquisition involving these complex cognitive systems. It's not just memorizing, it's building new paths in your brain.
It is. Neural structures that allow for automatic use. And you see this term used technically all the time in psychology and linguistics. Research on second language acquisition is what informs how we design curriculum.
So for you, the learner, what's crucial to understand is that there are different types of acquisition, right?
Yes. You have conscious, guided acquisition like taking a class. But you also have that spontaneous acquisition, which happens just through immersion and exposure.
Which we'll get to later.
We will. But for now, think about career advancement. We talk about the acquisition of new skills, which often requires a strategic endeavor to make sure that learning translates into something you can actually use professionally.
So endeavor sets the stage, it's the effort, and acquisition measures the success of that effort. But that's just step one.
Getting the information in is one thing.
Making it stick is something else entirely.
Right. Once you've acquired that knowledge, the next critical phase, as our sources explain it, is all about strengthening and solidification.
And this is where we need to dissect two crucial verbs, reinforce and consolidate.
They're often confused.
They are. Let's start with reinforce. It means to strengthen or support. often by adding something external, a belief, a behavior, even a physical structure.
The synonyms are so helpful here. Bolster, fortify, buttress. That
Yeah.
sounds like engineering.
It is. It's cognitive engineering.
Yeah.
Think about reinforcement as adding an external stimulus to get a desired outcome.
So in behavioral psychology, positive feedback reinforces good behavior.
Right. And cognitively, regular practice reinforces what you've learned. You're firing those same neural pathways over and over again.
Making the path easier to travel. Physically, you reinforce concrete with rebar. You are literally adding support.
Okay, so that's reinforce. Now let's draw that fine line. How is consolidate different?
While it's similar, consolidate implies combining different things into a single, more effective whole. It's about making something stronger from within.
So it's internal restructuring, not external support.
Precisely. If reinforce is adding strength, consolidate is merging, uniting, or making the structure fundamentally solid on its own.
And the sources point to cognitive science here, right? With sleep.
They do. Sleep specifically helps consolidate memories. It's a biological process. Your brain is actively restructuring and integrating all the fragmented learning from the day into stable long-term memory.
It's moving information from the inbox to the permanent archive.
That's a great way to put it. It's creating a cohesive whole.
That distinction is huge. If you're reading a new chapter, you might reinforce the vocabulary with a quick quiz right after. But to truly consolidate that chapter, you need time, you need sleep, and maybe a review where you connect that chapter's themes to the ones before it. You merge it all.
Or think about it in business. A company reinforces its market position with more advertising. That's external.
Right.
But it consolidates its operations by merging 3 departments into one. That's creating internal cohesion.
Okay, that makes it crystal clear. Adding support versus creating a unified whole.
And all of this work, the endeavor, the acquisition, the reinforcement, and consolidation, it all leads to the outcome we're actually chasing.
Which is proficiency.
Proficiency, it's the metric. It's defined as a high degree of skill or competence, expertise.
The synonyms here really drive it home. Mastery, command, capability. It's not just recognizing information.
No, it's using it fluently.
And to make this concrete for you, our sources point to established frameworks. Like in language learning, you have the CEFR scale.
The Common European Framework of Reference.
Right. Aiming for C1 proficiency is so much more useful than just aim to be good. It links your goal to a technical, tangible scale.
Absolutely. C1 or C2 proficiency means you can handle complex, specialized, abstract communication. It implies you have the vocabulary, the grammar, and the cultural context.
And the strategic competence to use it all effectively.
And consistently. That's key. The sources stress that achieving proficiency in anything, coding, listening, comprehension, whatever, it requires practice that pushes you past your comfort zone.
It's why we have tests. Employers need to know you have the practical command to do the job.
It's the difference between knowing the rules of baseball and being able to hit a fastball.
Consistently.
Consistently. Proficiency is all about automation and consistency of results.
Okay, so we've laid out the architecture of learning. Now let's shift gears. This is a big one. We're moving from the act of learning to the quality of what is learned and communicated. Because real mastery isn't just what you know.
It's your ability to spot, articulate, and react to those fine distinctions.
Exactly. Here's where it gets really interesting.
The ability to use the terms nuance and subtle correctly is in itself a sign of high proficiency.
I believe that. They're essential tools for critical thinking.
They are. Let's start with nuance.
It's a noun, a subtle difference in meaning, expression, or sound, a fine distinction.
It's the refinement, the shade, the gradation that keeps us from falling into that black and white thinking.
A great example from the sources is translation. A great translator captures every nuance of the original text.
Right, which means they're conveying not just the literal words, but the emotional tone, the cultural context, the implied intent.
If you miss the nuance, you've missed the whole point.
You have. And this applies to social interaction, too. Understanding the nuances of casual speech, like when a polite question becomes a demand just through tone, that's social proficiency.
And in the arts, an actor's performance is praised for its emotional nuance. It shows complex, layered feelings, not just simple, flat emotions.
So that's the nuance. Now, subtle is the adjective we use to describe that difference.
Meaning delicate or precise, not obvious, elusive.
So if nuance is the distinction itself, subtle is the quality of being delicate or hard to detect.
Okay, so you might say a chef made a subtle change to a recipe just a tiny bit more acid.
Which resulted in a profound nuance in the flavor profile.
Yes. The difference was subtle, hard to notice, but the resulting nuance, the overall refined distinction, made the dish incredible.
Perfect example. And in language, our sources warn that subtle differences in intonation can completely change meaning. A subtle hint of sarcasm can change the entire tone.
So you have to train your ear to detect these subtle variations.
You do, because they hold the key to the full nuance of the message. Without that skill, you're only ever going to grasp the surface level meaning.
Okay, so if our goal is precision in capturing nuance, then the ultimate enemy has to be ambiguity.
The direct counterpoint. It fundamentally undermines communication.
It's the quality of being open to more than one interpretation. Inexactness, uncertainty.
Vagueness, obscurity. But we have to differentiate between the types of ambiguity. This is a critical point.
It is. The sources highlight two forms. First, there's structural ambiguity.
This happens when the syntax or the grammar allows for multiple, valid readings.
The classic example is, connected speech can create ambiguity. A non-native listener might hear ice cream as ice scream.
It's an acoustic or grammatical failure that leads to multiple interpretations. But then there's the second form, deliberate ambiguity.
This is where things get political.
They do. A politician uses deliberate ambiguity in a statement to avoid making a commitment. The language is crafted to be vague enough to be interpreted favorably by different groups.
So they can later claim their intended meaning was whatever suited the moment. It's manipulative.
Highly. And you see in legal contracts all the time. Legal teams spend ages rewriting contracts specifically to remove any potential ambiguity.
Because if there's ambiguity about who is responsible for something, everything grinds to a halt.
For you, the learner, the danger is real. When you see ambiguity, you have to stop and ask, is this vagueness accidental or is it strategic?
Right. Is it a mistake or an evasion?
And you can't move forward until you resolve that.
So if we spot that ambiguity, or if we need to make sure a complex nuance gets across, the active step we have to take is to elaborate.
And this word, again, has that dual nature, a verb and an adjective, which perfectly captures the relationship between detail and complexity.
As a verb, elaborate means to develop or present something in detail, to explain it more fully.
It's the act of overcoming a lack of clarity. If I ask you to elaborate on a theory, I'm asking you to expand on it, to detail the ideas.
And it has to be logical. It's not just adding more words. It's providing a step-by-step breakdown. If a statement was too broad, you elaborate with specific examples.
Exactly. Now consider the adjective form. Elaborate, meaning detailed and complicated. Complex, intricate.
Like an elaborate clockwork mechanism.
Or an elaborate security system. And the two meanings really feed each other.
The thing that is elaborate, the complicated design,
inherently requires us to elaborate the detailed explanation in order to understand it.
Right. The sources link this to technical manuals. The more elaborate the machine, the more detailed the explanation has to be.
It's a good reminder that sometimes complexity just demands more words. And that's okay, as long as those words are structured and logical.
We've covered the learning process, the tools of precision. Now let's talk about performance. Because knowing the material is one thing. Choosing the right words for the right context, that's mastery.
It is. This section is all about using language with power, with grace, and with cultural appropriateness.
We'll start with the aspirational words, the ones that define powerful, effective, formal communication.
And there's a clear hierarchy here between eloquent, articulate, and coherent.
Let's start at the base, with coherent. It means logical and consistent, forming a unified whole.
If your thought process is a mess, your speech can't be coherent. The synonyms are great. Rational, systematic, lucid. It's about an argument holding together.
Coherence is the absolute foundation. You have to have a well-structured argument where everything connects logically.
And if you practice forming coherent responses quickly, you're building the mental muscle to maintain that logic, even under pressure.
Okay, so building on that foundation, we get to articulate, another one of those dual nature words.
Right. It refers to the smooth, clear expression of those coherent thoughts. As a verb, it's about expressing fluently and pronouncing clearly.
And as an adjective, it means being able to speak fluently and clearly.
Being articulate is bridging that gap between your internal thought and your external delivery. A professor who can articulate complex ideas simply is performing a huge service.
They're making highly elaborate knowledge accessible.
Exactly. Practice helps you articulate your thoughts clearly. It ensures the message you send is the one that's received.
And then at the top of the pyramid, we have eloquent.
This is articulate speech but with power and impact.
Fluent or persuasive in speaking or writing, moving, powerful in expression. This is where rhetoric meets mastery.
An eloquent defense of human rights isn't just clear and logical. It's not just articulate and coherent.
It stirs emotion. It compels action.
It speaks to the listener's brain and their values. The source material notes that even native speakers can sound eloquent in casual conversation if they use powerful, intentional language. It's not just about a big vocabulary.
So the progression is clear. A coherent argument is logical. An articulate speaker delivers it clearly. An eloquent delivery transforms it into a powerful force.
Perfect.
But we can't just live in the world of the eloquent order. Most of our communication happens on the ground, in the real world. And that requires a sensitivity to informal speech. Which brings us to colloquial and vernacular.
Colloquial describes language used in ordinary, familiar conversation. It's informal, casual, and by definition, not really suitable for formal writing.
So this includes expressions and contractions like gonna and wanna.
Exactly. It's necessary for natural, comfortable communication. Our sources point out that writers sometimes adopt a colloquial style on purpose.
To sound authentic, to connect with a specific audience.
Right. It signals informality, relatability. The danger for the learner is knowing when to code switch.
Right.
Using overly colloquial language in a boardroom can really undermine your perceived competence.
Even if your content is perfectly coherent.
Even then. And speaking too formally in a casual setting can make you seem stiff or inaccessible.
Which sets the stage for vernacular. Now, this is similar to colloquial, but it has a key difference, doesn't it?
It does. Vernacular carries a geographical or a communal significance. It refers to the language or dialect spoken by ordinary people in a particular region or a specific professional group.
The local language, the jargon.
The distinction matters. Colloquial is about the tone. It's informal. Vernacular is about the specific linguistic system, the local dialect.
So understanding the local vernacular is essential for communicating naturally within that community.
It is. And the sources provide a fascinating example of vernacular as a bridge. Scientific papers are often translated from highly technical language into the vernacular for the general public.
So it's making that highly elaborate technical knowledge accessible to common understanding.
Yes, it transforms exclusive knowledge into public knowledge, using the language people actually speak every day. It's the ultimate anti-jargon tool.
So mastery isn't just about using the most formal, eloquent language.
Not at all. It's about having the proficiency to select the right register formal or vernacular for whatever context you're in.
Okay, now that we've discussed the learning process and the standards of expression, we shift to the practical, proactive tools of the active learner.
This section is all about maximizing efficiency, managing cognitive load, and adopting the right mindset.
We need to maximize our resources and reduce resistance. And the three key action verbs here are facilitate, supplement, and incorporate.
Right. Facilitate is the first step.
Making an action or process easier. Assisting progress, the synonyms are great. Enable, expedite, simplify, it's a friction reducer.
Think of it as structuring your environment to facilitate success. Using subtitles facilitates comprehension for language learners. It's an extra data stream.
Or new software that organizes files automatically facilitates communication for a remote team.
Good policy facilitates economic development. It's about designing a system that makes the endeavor easier to manage.
So once we've facilitated the process, we often find that our main resource isn't enough on its own.
That's when we supplement.
Meaning to add something extra to complete or enhance it works as both a verb and a noun.
So if you're using a single textbook, you might supplement your reading with videos or practice tests. You're adding components to enhance the primary learning.
A journalist might supplement their article with interviews to provide more depth.
It just acknowledges that excellence usually requires more than the basics. It requires optimization.
And once we have that extra knowledge, the ultimate goal is to fully own it, to incorporate it.
This is an active step, including something as part of a whole, integrating or absorbing it into your existing structure.
This is the moment passive knowledge becomes active skill.
It is. The sources emphasize you have to actively incorporate new vocabulary into your daily conversations. If you only read it but never use it, it just stays external.
True learning means your design choices start to incorporate elements from styles you've studied.
Or your development team incorporates customer feedback into the next product version. It's assimilation into the core system.
Now for you, the learner, tackling a massive new subject can lead to a very specific feeling, the feeling of being overwhelming.
And this is maybe the most human word in our whole toolkit. It's so important to validate this psychological part of the journey.
It's defined as very great in intensity or amount. So powerful, it's difficult to resist or cope with.
Crushing, staggering,
Yeah.
formidable. It recognizes that our cognitive resources are not infinite.
The sources offer that validation. The amount of new vocabulary or data can feel overwhelming at first. When you start any big endeavor, it can feel like trying to drink from a fire hose.
You see it in other contexts too. Facing overwhelming odds, experiencing overwhelming grief. The intensity feels paralyzing.
And one of the biggest contributors to that overwhelming feeling is the persistence of difficulties.
Which brings us to recurrent, meaning occurring often or repeatedly, happening again and again.
When you feel overwhelmed, it's often because you feel like you're starting from scratch every single day.
But often, the challenge isn't a new concept. It's a recurrent pattern you just haven't mastered yet.
Like recurrent sound reductions in fast English, they keep tripping you up because you haven't identified the pattern.
And recognizing that a difficulty is recurrent is the first step toward dealing with it. It lets you stop seeing it as a unique new obstacle every time.
And you start seeing it as a predictable part of the system.
Exactly. You stop saying, I can't do this, and you start saying, I need a better strategy for this recurrent structure. That perspective shift dramatically reduces the overwhelming feeling.
So the best way to deal with recurrent and overwhelming challenges is through preparation.
Through anticipation.
Anticipate, meaning to expect or predict something and to act in advance to prepare for it. It's all about foresight.
The active learner uses anticipation strategically. Through practice, you learn to anticipate common grammar structures, or what a speaker will probably say next, based on the context.
And that's a huge difference from just reacting. If you anticipate the structure, you free up mental bandwidth to actually process the content.
Which moves you closer to real proficiency. Businesses fail because they don't anticipate market shifts. If you anticipate a tough question in a Q&A, you prepare a detailed, coherent answer beforehand.
You reduce the chance of an inarticulate or ambiguous response.
Right.
Now, contrast that careful preparation and anticipation with the ultimate goal state. Spontaneous.
Happening as a result of a sudden impulse, without premeditation, happening naturally.
Spontaneous is the true test of internalizing a skill. If you're operating spontaneously, it means the knowledge has been fully consolidated and incorporated.
You're not thinking about the rules anymore. You're just acting instinctively. The sources point out that spontaneous conversations are the best way to test your skills because they eliminate your ability to pre-plan.
It's like athletes. They practice set plays. That's anticipation. But in the final moments of a game, the winning action has to be spontaneous, instinctive.
And if you have to pause to recall a grammar rule, you are not being spontaneous. True mastery turns conscious learning into unconscious, spontaneous action.
We've built this incredible toolkit of precise nouns and formal verbs. But to sound truly natural, conversational, dynamic,
To sound like you've reached that highest level of proficiency.
you have to master the phrasal verbs.
These are the idiomatic action words that capture the everyday reality of learning and communicating.
Let's start with two essentials for understanding: catch on and break down.
Catch on primarily means to understand or grasp something. It often implies a sudden aha moment.
Once you understand the pattern of how articles are used, you'll catch on quickly.
And the beauty of phrasal verbs is their flexibility. That same phrase can mean an idea is becoming popular or fashionable.
Like a new trend is starting to catch on with consumers.
Exactly. The context, is it intellectual or is it sociological? Is everything. You have to anticipate which meaning is intended.
Next up, we have breakdown. This is a fantastic example of a phrasal verb with wildly different meanings.
It demands maximum attention to context. It can mean a car breaking down or an emotional collapse, but we're focused on the analytical meaning.
For cognitive mastery.
Analytically, break down means to divide a complex concept into simpler parts for analysis. If a concept feels overwhelming, the first thing you do is break it down.
Break down the complex theory into simple, coherent concepts.
We use this constantly in research. You break down a financial report into key components to analyze trends. In language, you break down a long sentence into its clauses to understand the grammar.
So this dissection is essential before you can synthesize or elaborate.
It is. It's the intellectual opposite of consolidate. So when a source tells you to break down the components of connected speech, they're asking you to apply a precise analytical strategy.
To dissect the information into manageable parts so the ambiguity just disappears.
Right.
Okay, so if acquisition is the formal noun, The informal, action-oriented way to talk about gaining skills casually is
Pick up.
pick up, meaning to learn or acquire something informally, often passively.
Usually through immersion or exposure rather than deliberate instruction. This is the spontaneous side of acquisition.
You pick up new expressions naturally just by being around native speakers.
Okay.
You picked up Spanish slang while living abroad without ever opening a textbook.
Right, you contrast that with the formal acquisition that required a structured endeavor.
And it still has its other meanings, of course, picking up groceries or a business picking up during the holidays.
But for the learner, it highlights the power of your environment. You are always picking up information, even when you aren't actively trying to reinforce it.
Closely related to that idea of immersion is the mental adjustment you have to make, which is captured by tune in.
Tune in. It means adjusting your sensory input or your focus to become aware of something, becoming receptive, attentive.
This requires deliberate effort, even if the result feels passive.
It does. You have to consciously tune your ear to the rhythm and flow of authentic English, maybe ignoring the visual cues you'd normally rely on. It's about adjusting your input filter.
And in a professional context, you might need to tune in to the AUKUS culture.
Meaning you need to become aware of its unspoken rules and dynamics before you can incorporate yourself effectively. If you fail to tune in, you'll miss the subtle cues that dictate the social nuance of that environment.
Finally, we need to address the critical phrase for staying current and maintaining momentum.
Especially when information is coming at you fast. Keep up with.
This means to move or progress at the same rate as someone or something, or to stay informed about it.
It's an active effort to maintain parity, especially when the target is a moving one.
It can be a real challenge to keep up with fast-speaking native speakers. They're setting the pace, and you have to match it.
And you have to use high-speed anticipation and rapid comprehension to do it. The difficulty is processing the input and formulating a coherent response at the same time.
In the professional world, it's tough to keep up with the latest tech developments or the news cycle.
This phrase just perfectly captures that feeling of information overload, that constant recurrent need to apply effort just to maintain your current level of knowledge.
You need to incorporate new strategies that facilitate speed and efficiency.
Otherwise, you simply won't keep up with the flow. It's the synthesis of speed and comprehension that you need for truly high-level proficiency.
So what does this all mean? We started with the grand endeavor of learning, the strategic acquisition of knowledge. We then learned the techniques to reinforce and consolidate that knowledge until we achieved true proficiency.
We moved from effort to precision. We focused on distinguishing subtle differences, appreciating nuance, and avoiding the traps of ambiguity.
And knowing when to elaborate to ensure absolute clarity.
Exactly.
Then we traced the full spectrum of expression. We mastered the difference between the formal power of eloquent and coherent speech.
And the real-world utility of colloquial and vernacular language.
We covered the active strategies, how to facilitate learning, what it means to incorporate new skills, and how to manage that overwhelming feeling.
By recognizing recurrent patterns and learning to anticipate challenges, using dynamic verbs like break down complex ideas.
The takeaway seems to be that true proficiency is less about avoiding ambiguity.
And more about knowing when to elaborate and when to rely on the vernacular.
These 26 terms are so much more than definitions. They are active tools for navigating the complexity of human interaction and knowledge itself.
They give you the language to describe, analyze, and accelerate the journey you're already on.
We discussed how to learn and solidify knowledge. But if spontaneous conversation is, as the sources say, the single best test of internalized skill, then the challenge for you, the learner, kind of shifts, doesn't it?
It does. We know you have to practice the art of anticipation, predicting grammar, predicting structure in order to keep up with fast-paced discussion. But how can you structure that practice?
So that anticipation becomes so fast, so second nature that it actually feels spontaneous.
That is the ultimate endeavor, training your mind to instantly react, not just to laboriously recall.
That's the space where true effortless mastery resides.